Hi, Sam, can you hear me?
Mario, it's Tanya. I can hear you clearly.
Thank you. We'll go to the one side.
Thank you.
Hi, Tanya, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Hi, Tanya, the last one. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. Good to go.
Thank you.
All right.
Tanya, in the house.
The House Chairperson.
Recording in progress.
There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. You may be seated. Honorable members, as usual, let me remind you that let's observe the protocols and let's not stay closer to each other. I can see somewhere there's something wrong. And change any lap. Nizahlangana ngaphandle. Honorable members, I will allow the secretary to read the first order.
Consideration of request for approval by Parliament of the International Labour Organization ILO Convention number 190 concerning the elimination of violence and harassment in the world of work in terms of section 231(2) of the Constitution 1996.
Thank you. I will now invite the chairperson, Honorable Dunjwa, to reintroduce the report.
Honorable House Chair, members of the August House, ministers, deputy ministers, I hereby, on behalf of the Portfolio Committee of Employment and Labor, table the report. The committee met on the 20th of June 2021 to consider the request for approval by Parliament of the International Labour Organization Convention number 190 concerning the elimination of violence and harassment in the world of work. The committee has considered this historic treaty and recommends, in terms of section 2312 of the Constitution, that the House approves the ILO Convention number 190. The Convention 190 seeks to stipulate the international standard against violence and harassment at work, the values on which this treaty is based according with the founding provision of our own Constitution. The South African Constitution affirms human dignity, the achievement of equality, and the advancement of human rights and freedoms as the first principle of the existence of the Republic of South Africa. The General Conference of ILO Convention in Geneva in Switzerland affirmed that all human beings, irrespective of race, creed, or sex, have the right to pursue both their material well-being and their spiritual development in conditions of freedom and dignity, of economic security and equal opportunity. The General Conference reaffirmed the relevance of the fundamental conventions of the ILO and recalled other relevant international instruments such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, the International Convention on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, the Interprovincial Convention on Elimination of all Freedom of Racial Discrimination, and the International Convention on the Freedom of Rights of all migrant workers and members of their families. By ratifying convention, all the member states of the ILO recognize that right of everyone at the world of work free from violence and harassment, including gender-based violence and harassment. They also recognize that violence and harassment in the workplace continues a human rights violation, and that violence and harassment is a threat of equal opportunities. It is unacceptable and incompatible with the decent work agenda. Convention number 190 argues that ILO on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, while it may appear as a separate category of violence, the reality is that domestic violence can affect employment, productivity, health, and safety of workers. Any woman who has been a victim of domestic violence can relate to what I'm saying. It is the responsibility of governments, employers, and worker organizations to put in place measures to recognize, respond to, and to address the impacts of gender-based violence, which is the most prevalent human rights violation in the world. Convention 190 entered into in 25th June 2021 in terms of section 231(2) of the Constitution, and international agreement binds the Republic of South Africa only after it has been approved by resolution in both houses, the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces, unless it is an international agreement of all technical, administrative, or executive nature. In accordance with our country's membership of the ILO and in line with the values in our Constitution, this House must vote to ratify this convention. By so doing, South Africa will affirm its place in the world as a leader in respecting the inherent human dignity of every worker. I so put this to the House to be voted for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now recognize political parties that wish to make declarations. The DA.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, state that the ILO Convention is a good one. The adoption of the convention deserves applause. Even the document codifying all our regulations on violence and harassment at work is absolutely solid and cannot be opposed. However, it is a big however. The devil, as always in South Africa, is the implementation, inspection, oversight, monitoring, and consequence management. In South Africa, it is disastrous. We have just celebrated Women's Month. We look back at the great women of 1956 who protested the pass laws. Every year, our self-congratulating governing party pledges that women will be safe in South Africa, and they state in glowing terms what they're going to do to ensure that the problem of gender-based violence and femicide is advanced and killed once and for all. Every year, these promises are hollow. Every year, the disgusting behavior goes unchecked and gets worse. Our government is helpless. Education is lacking. The Department of Employment and Labour cannot afford a full complement of inspections. The inspectors have been left high and dry with no proper tools of their trade, such as transport and computers. It is a rare occurrence for any business to actually see an inspector, let alone have an inspection. Complaints go unheeded and are promptly filed in file 13. The various entities under the Department of Employment and Labour are dysfunctional, useless, and unfortunately also under-resourced. Thanks to the monies needed for SAA, Eskom, and all the other parastatals, the workers of South Africa have been left unprotected. It is all very well to talk about elimination of violence and harassment at work, and it's all very well to have the approval of these lofty conventions, regulations, and even law. When Shakespeare wrote the Laws and Arts, he obviously had no idea how bad the situation would be in South Africa today. Daily, I receive emails from our desperate workers who get no joy at all from the various governmental entities. The compensation fund is broken. The UIF is mortally wounded. And even the one entity that actually is world-class is now so severely unfunded that our Minister of Employment and Labour appears to be hell-bent on destroying that as quickly as possible. It was Plato who said, "Those who are too smart to engage in politics are being punished by those governed by those who are dumber." It is true that the governors today in South Africa reflect exactly what Plato had to say. Debates such as this sound fantastic. They give the politicians warm, fuzzy feelings, and those in the governing party can go home feeling good and thereafter trumpet that they've done an enormous amount to eliminate violence and harassment at the world of work. When the Democratic Alliance point out that the system is broken and highlights ways and means of fixing it, they're accused of all manner of wrongdoing. When I pointed this out at the Labour portfolio meeting after 6 months of our pandemic, that the UIF was useless, I was accused and threatened. The chairperson threatened with all sorts of fire and brimstone and said she was roundly supported by her colleague and also by the tainted officials from that department. The proof of the pudding was that the top management team of the UIF was thereafter suspended when negative reports came back from the Auditor General. It was Voltaire, way back in the 1700s, who said, and I quote, "It is dangerous to be right when the government is wrong." I waited for that threatened investigation into my behavior, but needless to say, it was not forthcoming. Despite the nice ring of truth to the International Labour Organization Convention, and despite the positive words, I don't believe our current government will follow up with any action. It's rather like the words of Humpty Dumpty in Alice Through the Looking Glass, who said, "When I use a word," Humpty Dumpty said in a rather scornful tone, "it means just what it means, neither more nor less." In essence, we can all sit here piously and approve the international conventions and can even legislate volumes to reflect the conventions. We can debate, argue, pass amendments, make fantastic speeches, but to no avail. The laws aren't worth the paper they're written on if they can't be monitored and enforced. The Democratic Alliance has made suggestions on the improvement of workplace regulations, has even given the country evidence of how a province can be run. The current quarterly review of unemployment shows that the Western Province has performed superbly in comparison to the other provinces. I implore the workers of South Africa to have a look at the empirical evidence on how workers thrive under a Democratic Alliance government. Support the Democratic Alliance in the forthcoming local elections, and this will translate into the eventual elimination of gender-based violence and harassment at work. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We invite the EFF.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, The IOL Convention 190 report has a huge potential to enable our country to be more prompt when it comes to fighting for the rights of workers that have been exploited for centuries. But we all know, even after being aligned with the important legislations like the Employment Equity Act and the Compensation for Occupational Disease Act, it will be put in the darkest shelf to collect dust. The ANC government has a bad reputation of hiring consultants, pay hefty funds for production of very good policies, but they are the first to contravene such policies because there is no political will to improve the working conditions of workers in this country. The ANC is exploiting its own employees. They go for months without salaries. They are turned into modern day slaves. Maybe we are expecting too much from this old organization. The high unemployment rate that keeps increasing daily contribute in making job seekers to be easily predated by bribe soliciting officials and politicians. Women continue to be victims of sex for jobs because sex is the preferred inclusement for them. They are poor and don't have money to pay. The EFF labor desk receives thousands of complaints by both men and women of exploitation, harassment, and abuse by employers. The EFF labor desk offices are very close to them, unlike the CCMA and the labor centers only found in big cities and hardly accessible to our poor and marginalized workers. The tender system has perfected to ensure that cleaners and security guards are harassed on daily basis. They are exploited by the tenderpreneurs. They don't get any living wage. There are no benefits. Chair, the document by itself will never effect any positive changes to the plight of the poor and vulnerable workers in this country, but a clear implementation strategy and a political will. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Members on the platform, please make sure that your microphones are muted. You hear now? Invite the IFP for declaration.
Thank you very much to you, Honorable Chair. The International Labour Organization's ILO Convention number 190 concerning the elimination of violence and harassment in the world of work recalls that human beings, irrespective of race, creed, or sex, have the right to pursue both their material well-being and their spiritual development in conditions of freedom and dignity, of economic security, and equal opportunity. This convention importantly sums up, but is not limited to, the idea that universally we have a right to a world of work free from violence and harassment, including gender-based violence, GBV, and harassment. That violence and harassment in the world of work can constitute a human rights violation or abuse, and that violence and harassment is the threat to equal opportunities, is unacceptable and incompatible with decent work. It is from these principles that we must derive our legislative duty to our citizens of this country. This means that we must create legislation that seeks to promote a healthy workplace free from material and physical abuse. Our workplaces must become people-centric rather than merely pushing the bottom line. However, Honorable Speaker, if we do not free our social fabric from the grips of violence in general, GPV, and mental abuse, we cannot hope to meet the requirements of this convention in full. This will just become another tick box exercise for this legislature. With no real meaning of the ground, we still have alarmingly high statistics pertaining to violence, running into tens of thousands. Honorable Cele, as the Minister of Police, has a role to play, yet his excitement over the reduced crime statistics is not a true reflection of where South Africa is in terms of addressing violence. Honorable Cele completely missed the mark in failing to recognize the so-called gift he had been given through lockdowns, bans, and curfews, which are not sustainable solutions. Very importantly, as a legislature, we need to set an example, and to date, we have not. How many times have we seen certain individuals engage in physical altercations only to be slightly sanctioned and then once again appear in this house? We are mandated by the people of this country to make South Africa a better place.
Babu Ngobo,
Very much,
Ngiyathokoza.
thank you, Chairperson.
FF Plus.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Honourable House Chair, the ILO Convention is a good one and another tool in the fight against GBV and specifically workplace harassment and violence, something that occurs and happens far too often with far too many women and workers in South Africa. The problem, though, is if we look at the track record of the Department of Labour, the department tasked with the implementation and oversight of this convention, it does not inspire confidence that this convention will be properly implemented and followed through on. The track record of the government of the day does not inspire confidence either. Workplace harassment and GBV is one thing that has grown worse after government has repeatedly vowed to stop these terrible things from happening. Another form of abuse that South African workers have to endure is the abuse of poor service delivery from the entities of the department itself. The UIF and Compensation Fund has been victimizing workers and service providers to these workers for years by not handling their claims and payments due to them to deserving workers in a timely and prompt manner. So we can have all the conventions in the world, Honourable House Chair, but if they are not implemented properly by a department and a government that has the will to do so, nothing will improve and nothing will change. I thank you, House Chair.
Thank you very much. The ACGP.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The International Labour Organization's Violence and Harassment Convention of 2019, abbreviated C190, came into effect on 25 June 2021. Although adopted in June 2019, it has been ratified by only 7 countries, which are Argentina, Ecuador, Fiji, Mauritius, Namibia, Somalia, and Uruguay. Currently, it is in force only in Fiji and Uruguay. C190 is generally a worthy convention for South Africa to aim for, but a huge amount of work is still needed before we can honestly claim compliance and its provisions. According to Article 4.1, signatories to C190 are expected to, and I quote, respect, promote, and realize the right of everyone to a world of work free from violence and harassment, close quote. Corruption fighters in the workplace are most vulnerable. Article 10 of C190 speaks of protection against victimization of or retaliation against complainants, victims, witnesses, and whistleblowers. Sadly, just a week ago, the head of financial accounting of the Gauteng Health Department was gunned down outside her home in broad daylight. As a key witness to the SIU investigation into PPE corruption, Babita Deokaran should have been protected. The ACDP calls on government to do much more to protect all whistleblowers in the workplace, because without them, the fight against corruption will never be won. We must remember, honorable members, that happy and satisfied workers are more productive. In 1914, Henry Ford made a business decision to pay his workers double the going rate for 8-hour shifts, while all the other motor industry workers labored for 10 to 16 hours a day. By improving working conditions, Ford actually boosted productivity and reduced staff turnover. I thank you.
Thank you. UDM? Not on the platform, ne? ATM? Good. Not there. NFP? Babu Swisi, I saw you appearing on the screen. Are you there? We proceed. AIC? Yo. Cope?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The request put before us at the National Assembly today is not something new, given our proven assertion that for centuries workers of South Africa and the world faced consistent harassment and violation of rights that permeate the world of work. South Africa adopted the Constitution in 1996, which indicates that the Republic is bound by international agreements, which were binding on the Constitution when the Constitution took effect. I, however, must emphasize that, as we all know, harassment and violation of workers' rights has risen and keeps on rising given the treatment of workers by what I call the owners and managers of work, who treat workers as tools. Section 23 of our Constitution's Bill of Rights forces us to support and or even fight against any step that undermines the elimination of violence and harassment in the world of work. There is a problem, however, that Honorable Chair, one must emphasize, is particularly the one that is there in the public sector, where agreements are reached and signed each and every year, but then not implemented. Now, that is a very serious problem where, yes, each and every year, because you're asking me, Honorable Papo, every year, agreements are signed and those particular agreements are never implemented. You talk about salaries, for example, they are not implemented, and when they are implemented, instead of that particular amount that has been agreed to, it gets cut by even more than 75%. And that is why workers there are very angry. They're always in trouble. They want to go on strikes. Workers of the mine there, you talk about the teachers, you talk about the police, you talk even about the people who work in the army, all the workers in the public service. The workers here who work for this parliament as well, they are not given any proper salaries. You go into agreements, they are never implemented. I think the government in particular must be ashamed, and a lot has got to be done. Thank you.
Al-Jama? Al-Jama is not here. The ANC.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Honorable members, ministers, deputy ministers. International Labour Organization impresses upon member states such as ours to rectify Convention 190, which is about violence and harassments in the world of work. Fortunately, this ILO Convention 190 comes to our country and find us having traversed a lot of ground. Well, that does not mean in any way that we have arrived, as there are still many rivers to cross and several mountains to climb. But the political work we've put in as a country has led to numerous formidable and sound legal prescripts. Right from the outset, South Africa's constitution declares that everyone has a right to fair labor practices. This ILO Convention 190 on violence and harassment in the world of work not only resonate with our constitution, but it also very much consistent with the pieces of legislations that flow from our supreme law. In terms of Labor Relations Act, employers are required to ensure that persons who engage in harassment and violence are subjected to discipline. Section 186, subsection 2 of the same Labor Relations Act states that harassment may also constitute an unfair labor practice. Occupational Health and Safety Act give the direction that where an employee's duties are of such a nature that they are exposed to a significant risk of violence at work, the employer must take such steps as may be reasonably practical to mitigate the hazards. Furthermore, Occupational Health and Safety Act asserts that employers must institute measures to ensure protection for employees against harassments and violence. This ILO Convention 190 is one of those that are easy to approve because it just flows very well with our labor laws, as I've already demonstrated. It is actually encouraging, honorable members, to see how congruent and compatible are our labor laws with the international labor laws. This, of course, is further proof that our labor laws are humane laws. They promote humanity. As we infuse ILO Convention 190 into our labor laws, we are giving more impetus to the process of consultation for our social partners to ensure that they identify sectors and other occupations with a strong gender-based focus, recognizing that women are disproportionately affected by violence and harassment. With us endorsing this ratification, we recognize and arm our public authorities of the important role of extending protection in the case of the informal economy workers and how Convention 190 can be used to support this cohort of workers. According to the ILO, more than 60% of the world's employed and they are living in the informal economy, and 92% of total women's employment in developing countries is informal. With this endorsement, we dedicate to a specific focus on the informal women workers whose lives and livelihoods have been acutely impacted by COVID-19 and the unprecedented economic crisis that has followed. These face precarious workers' condition and are typically excluded from national labor laws and denied social protection. Chairperson, we therefore as ANC stand here to support the ratification of the ILO Convention 190 on the violence and harassment in the world of work. I thank you.
Thank you very much. That is the conclusion of the declaration. Order, honorable members, are there any objection to the approval of the International Labour Organization Convention number 190 concerning the elimination of violence and harassment in the world of work as it appears on the order paper? Any objection? None. So the report is agreed to. I will ask the secretary to read the second order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Sport, Arts and Culture on visit to Performing Arts Center of Free State, National Arts Council, National Film and Video Foundation, ODI Stadium, and HM Pitjie Stadium on the 6th to 9th April 2021.
Thokoze sicela umama usihlalo wekomiti umama uZulani to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me greet every leader who's present today in this house and in the virtual platform. Firstly, Honorable Speaker, honorable members, as a chairperson of Committee of Sport, Arts and Culture, I'm conveying our condolences to the family and the ANC on the passing of our own member who was supposed to join us yesterday. I cannot say much because the chief whip of this house did issue the statement, but I'm suspecting it is in order that we must say something. Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members. Namhlanje sifumana elilungelo lokuthi sidakance lengxelo kulendlu yowisomthetho ngale nyanga yamagugu namasiko ikwa yinyanga ekuthiwa eyantlakohlaza. Honorable members, the arts, culture and creative industries remain an important source of the promoting well-being, social cohesion, national building and national healing, social stability and economic growth. This sector has an ability to play a key role in contributing to the growth and development of our society. Honorable members, the chairperson, the COVID pandemic had a devastating impact on the cultural and creative sector, in addition to sport and recreation. The mass cancellation of sports events, performing arts festivals, as well as limitation to crowds in response to the COVID-19 regulation has led us to massive losses of income, sponsorships, jobs, and livelihoods of athletes, artists, and creatives. In response to this experience in the sector, the President of the Republic of South Africa announced a presidential employment stimulus program that was aimed at preserving jobs as well as creating new jobs opportunities within the sport, arts, and culture sector. A total stimulus package of 665 million would be allocated the sector for distribution to the beneficiaries negatively affected by the lockdown in order to kickstart their planned programs. The issue of these PSP would be handled by the National Arts Council as well as the National Film and Video Foundation for the culture and creative sector, as well the sports trust. Honorable members, during the redistribution of these PSP funds, there were growing complaints from various artists within the sector questioning the distribution processes of the PSP. This also led to an ultimate protest whereby a number of artists occupied the premises of the National Arts Council in order to raise concerns over irregularities within the entire process of the PSP funding. Honorable Chairperson, the Portfolio Committee of Sports and Arts and Culture undertook an oversight visit on the Free State and Gauteng province from 6th to 9th April 2021. The primary purpose of this visit was to instigate the rollout of the COVID-19 relief fund the 165 million presidential employment stimulus program allocated to arts, culture, and heritage sector, as well as the walkabout to assess the state of our sport facilities in Tshwane. The committee appreciated the good work done by NFVF with regards to the distribution of the PSP relief funds, whereby all beneficiaries that applied and were approved received their funds and were able to preserve and create more jobs in the sector. We hope that the other entities can benefit from those. Now I'm presenting that the House must adopt this report. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any political party wishing to make a declaration, the DA?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I would like to dedicate this speech to Sibongile Mngoma, one of the artists that loves South Africa. She can sing, Honorable Chair and honorable members. She sings opera, to classic, to jazz and gospel. Don't die with your music still in your head. She's a leader by her own right. She's a leader of a creative organization. Chairperson, Artist Matters Life. Izimpilo zama artists zibalulekile kakhulu, Chairperson. Artists and creative plays important role in our country. We visited abahlali base NAC, the National Arts Council offices. At that time, there was a call for the minister and the president to intervene. They both failed to avail themselves for the creative industry. Our artists are not recognized by the president and the minister. They don't take our artists seriously. Maybe it's because the artists are not linked to the ANC. They don't have membership of the ANC. But those who have linked or membership of the ANC, who are connected, they have benefited. South African creative economy contributed plus minus 90 billion rand to the national economy. But this government is not recognizing the sector. Since the lockdown last year, the sector is not active to date. No shows, no theaters. Theaters are closing down under your watch, Minister Nathi Mthethwa. More than 50,000 artists are unemployed. They cannot even show off their talent during this COVID time. Artist life matters. Budget allocation. More than 650 million rand was made available as a relief fund to assist the sector. But our artists did not benefit. Only those who are connected to the ANC benefited. They even benefited twice, not once. 300 million rand was mismanaged by the National Arts Council. We are doing our oversight work. Minister, we are still waiting for a forensic investigation report. Minister, when will we get this investigation report? Will this investigation report include forensic accounting? Tell us. We are waiting for the terms of reference of the forensic investigation. The PEPS investigation, forensic investigation, kudliwe imali. Iyephi imali, Minister? Where is our money? I'm for the artist. Impilo yama artist ibalulekile. Umkhonyovu awufuneki. Artist matters kakhulu, Minister. Instead of accounting, you always sleep in your job. Ulela emsebenzini, Minister. The department and the entity fail to communicate effectively to all sectors. Chairperson, the minister must tell us what is happening with the industry, especially entertainment industry. It's dying day by day. There's no future for artists in South Africa under your watch, Minister. Because of incompetence, the government and officials that inspire our young people to become artists, to become musicians. There's emhlabeni ngeke ulahlele music ngaphandle. It's so important that South Africa cannot survive without our artists. Chairperson, we are doing our duty to make sure that all the KPIs are implemented of the department. We visited 2 historic stadiums at Tshwane, OD and Pitjie Stadium. What we saw poor condition of stadiums. Pitjie was built earmarked for the training for the venue for 2010 FIFA World Cup. After poor workmanship, the stadiums were not used, were not even occupied because there was no occupation certificate. It was not issued at all. Gwenzakalan, the company which benefited still did not pay back the money because they're not blacklisted to date. We went there to see for ourselves. No one was held accountable since 2010. Engineers confirmed that the structure was not good for usage. Safety issues were raised, health issues were raised under your watch, Minister Gwenzakalan. I've noted the following. Umkhonyovu ugcwele, unaccountability is there, historical repeat itself, no consequence management. Umkhonyovu manifests itself, maladministration is clearly visible. Gwenzakalan, Minister Schell. This makes our oversight very difficult because even officials of the national department and the provincial department did not come to attend our oversight visit. We summoned them, but they failed to come. Let me thank the community of Mamelodi for standing together against Umkhonyovu, pouncing on Umkhonyovu. Much more, Sesiye Free State, angifuna ukukhuluma because even the Free State.
Siyahlokoza isikhathi isiphelile.
Thank you, Chairperson. Happy Heritage Month. Thank you.
The EFF.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, the EFF reject the report by the Portfolio Committee on Arts and Culture of the oversight to the Performing Arts Center of Free State, the National Arts Council, the National Film and Video Foundation, and other sites in Tshwane. We do so because there is no relationship between what we found when we went to these institutions. The admission by the committee that the performing arts and creative industry are in crisis, and the report's recommendations. The recommendation lack a sense of urgency and the devastation caused by the COVID-19. Instead, the recommendation seeks to protect the incompetent Minister of Condolences. The recommendation failed to appreciate how artists and creative are hungry, disparate, and doing poorly because they are on their own. Even when the EFF tried to intervene, the devastation is too much. Parkhoffs, the National Arts Council, and the NFVF are riddled with corruption. Money spent to artists go to the pockets of senior managers, their cronies, and members of the ruling party. Forensic investigation reports are ignored, even when there is a clear evidence of corruption. We hope artists and creative in the performing space can now believe us when we say the ruling party does not care about them. As the EFF, we have proposed a model of governance that will ensure that public entities under the Department of Arts and Culture serve artists and the broader creative industry than the cronies of the Minister of Condolences. Instead of having CEOs and CFOs for each of these entities, the National Arts Council, the National Heritage Council, Parkhoff, NFVF, Museum, and other entities, we must develop a shared governance model that will manage all the entities under one roof. The money must go to artists, not management of these institutions. This is how we will begin to maximize available resources and do away with corruption. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Raleboga. The IFP. IFP.
Yeah, Chairperson, it seems Honorable Tuli is having some connectivity problems. May I proceed?
Pleasure.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, firstly, on behalf of the IFP, we want to congratulate those who did us proud in the Olympics and those who are currently doing us proud in the Paralympics. Also, we'd like to congratulate all the women who received honors in the G Sports Awards function last night. Chairperson, we continue to find ourselves in the midst of a COVID-19 storm. At this critical time, it is more important than ever to ensure that relief resources are provided on time and efficiently to people who need them. The arts, culture, and heritage sector has been hit hard by the restrictions that government has placed to curb the spread of the COVID pandemic. This sector has also been impacted by the slow and insufficient provision of COVID-19 relief funds. The sluggish pace at which relief has been provided to this sector requires us to think deeply about the nature of the problems in Bloemfontein and some parts of Johannesburg. We need to identify the problems so that we can hold the institutions responsible for the rollout of funding accountable and help them to improve on their performance. Hearing from the affected stakeholder group is also important for us to fully understand the impact and the problems. Chairperson, COVID-19 relief funds are essential for the preservation and resilience of the arts, culture, and heritage sector. This sector makes tremendous contributions to the economy, nation building, and social cohesion. It also enhances the economy by contributing to employment. While we are aware of the need to continue providing relief timely and efficiently, this committee should consider the need to implement certain recommendations that could improve the sector. Firstly, we have to take a firm stance on expediting the forensic report with regard to the Performing Arts Center in the Free State. Secondly, we also have to ensure that necessary steps are taken to fill all vacant managerial posts. It is undesirable to rely on acting staff for a long time. This is not a stage where Shakespeare is at play here. We need people that can do the job. In doing so, there's also a need to ensure that only properly qualified persons occupy these positions. Thirdly, there are also allegations of sexual harassment against management in the sector. These must be addressed because they are not only wrong in law, but also because such acts degrade the dignity of women and manifest as illustrations of power imbalance and abuse of positions. We should stand up against such abuses of power. Finally, Chairperson, another issue that must be addressed is the high levels of corruption in the sector, where we found that even non-artistic projects and deregistered companies received funding, COVID relief funding. Full investigations must continue, prosecutions and jail time must follow, and we hope that those artists who battle on a daily basis get paid what is due to them. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. ACGP.
Thank you. Thank you, House Chair. I will leave my camera on because of connectivity issues. Firstly, the ACDP would like to express our congratulations on the achievements of the Paralympics. Well done to our sportsmen and women in this regard. We would also like to share our concerns regarding the dire situation facing our performing arts section, and in particular, how artists are desperate as a result of the hard lockdown provisions. And it is against this dire situation that it is disgraceful that we see corruption in the sector. And we share the sentiments that the forensic report into the performing arts in the Free State must be completed as soon as possible, and the findings must be implemented. It is disgraceful that our musicians, our artists are struggling whilst we have the levels of corruption that is taking place. Lastly, the ACDP pleads that the artists that should be receiving COVID funding must receive that funding to enable them to feed their families, given the financial constraints they are living under. I thank you.
Thank you. I made a mistake and proceeded to the ACGP without calling the FF+. My apologies. FF+.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. House Chair, like many other once functioning and proud entities that used to promote social cohesion and nation building through sports and the arts, the Performing Arts Centre of the Free State is a mere shell of what it used to be and fails to execute its core business as a public entity as a direct result of poor management. Chairperson, consequence management, the Achilles heel of the public sector is non-existent at Pakhov's, which is evident in the fact that several high-ranking officials, including the CFO, the HR manager, and the acting CEO, who are all implicated in the Mora's forensic investigation report, are still in their posts and continuing with business as usual. Chairperson, we just approved the report on the ILO Convention Against Workplace Harassment. I said during my vote declaration that the problem with this convention will be the implementation thereof. So let me illustrate that with a practical example. Allegations of sexual harassment against junior staff at the Performing Arts Centre of the Free State are rampant. One staff member was even admitted to a psychiatric hospital due to this harassment, allegedly perpetrated by the CFO of Pakhov's, and nothing has been done to date. That is where the problem lies, Honourable House Chair, consequence management and the implementation of legislation that is supposed to protect our women and workers. Sport, agbare huisvoorsitter, is een van die mees verenigende faktore wat ons tot ons beskikking het in hierdie land. Doch het die regerende party daarin geslaag om sport as 'n middel tot verdeling te gebruik. Openbare sportfasiliteite in Suid-Afrika is in 'n jammerlike toestand van agteruitgang en verval. Geld word begroot vir die oprigting van reuse stadions waaraan nooit 'n enkele baksteen gelê word nie. En bestaande sportfasiliteite is tot op die grond afgebreek en veretter. Hoe moet sportontwikkeling en die groei van jong sportlui plaasvind as jong mense en atlete nie toegang tot behoorlike fasiliteite het nie? Agbare huisvoorsitter, hierdie regering sal ernstig moet besin oor die rigting waarin hulle besig is om ons sport- en kultuurpraktisyns te lei. Die toekoms is duister en die verval onaanvaarbaar. Ek dank u.
Baie dankie. Julium. APM. Good. NFP. NFP. AIC. Hope.
Honorable Chair and honorable members, I would say a lot has got to be done for those poor people, the actors, the performers of all kinds of art, the players in all sporting kind of activities. I want to say a lot is not being done. What you will see, for example, and I think all people in our country have seen that, is that the Minister of Arts and Culture will be seen as he goes out there to say to the nation that these are good players, these are good performers, we're giving them this and so on. But in actual fact, the department is not doing that which it is supposed to do. Recently, we saw that organization that organizes more than 500 performers, which had a sit-in for more than very many months, and nothing was done altogether in that instance until the minister and met with a few of them just to give them, a few cents, called the media and said, here is what government is doing. What we need to do as this parliament is to say to the minister, to say to government, indeed something must be done to make sure that these people are able to survive. What we see today is that these poor people will be there as actors, will clap hands. We're very happy to say they're doing something. They entertain us, but we are not doing anything to ensure that they have money, they have food, they're able to survive. I'm therefore saying that we're calling on the minister to stop really playing. We must call on the deputy minister not to be seen, but only get seen. Some of the stages when she goes to the stadium, when there is, a football, a match that's getting played there. Hence, I made a call to the president the other day that having some of these deputy ministers is not actually understood, because it's a Lot of money there that's been wasted instead of it going on and feeding the people of our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Al-Jamal.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Honorable House Chair, I think the minister must put on a pair of tackies so that he can move faster. We have seen the deterioration of our sports fields, but I want the minister to focus on school sports. You cannot give funding to associations that fight amongst themselves and then nothing happens on the playgrounds. The minister needs to look at our sports fields, and then at the same time, with his tackies on, maybe he must do an audit of the state and the condition of our sports fields all over the country. We need an audit so that we can understand this much better. With regard to the artists, you know, Honorable Chair, during the darkest days of apartheid, our artists brought a lot of comfort to us. I know because of my mom's safe house, they used to, in District 6, they used to go to Langa, Gugaletu, and the artists used to keep the morale up and the artists used to rally the people behind them. Today, we need artists to promote Ubuntu because after the looting, the unrest, the violence, and the burnings, Ubuntu is dead in South Africa. So now more than ever, we need our artists to promote Ubuntu, to bring Ubuntu to the people so they can understand Ubuntu. Because you cannot have an African destroying the economic livelihood of another African. That is not Ubuntu. So lastly, Honorable Chair, I would like to ask that the minister sponsor online performances of artists so they can earn some revenue. Artists don't want hampers and handouts like some of the honorable members have suggested. They want to work. We need to nurture their creativity, and that's why we call on the minister to announce that he will sponsor at least 100 online performances so that these artists can earn a living. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you.
I like the hairstyle, eh?
Hendricks.
Who's speaking now?
See? The ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson. Ngicela ngicela ungayisebenzisa ivideo ukuze ngangicompromise ku-network.
Kubeka ba.
Ngiyabonga. Thank you, Chairperson and honorable members. The creative and cultural sectors are fundamental to the holistic development of our society. During this Heritage Month, we should continue to support the sector in building a united and prosperous society. They have made and continue to make an invaluable contribution to the building of a new inclusive society. And it is important to emphasize that building of South Africa into a just and inclusive society cannot be compromised without drawing on the creative and cultural resources of our people. The ANC remains committed to ensuring that the arts, culture, and heritage contribute to transformation and creation of a better life for all. Therefore, it is significant that the intention is to effectively contribute to building a cohesive and united society in which everyone has access to arts, culture, and heritage resources, facility, and opportunities. We are steadfast in our resolution that we must promote and support the diverse industries. This includes ensuring that there is a public-private partnership investment into the sector, that we ensure that artists are justly rewarded for their labor and protect the copyrights of artists. Honorable Chairperson, where an opportunity to undertake an oversight visit to Free State and Gauteng as indicated by the Chairperson on the 6th to the 9th of 2021. The primary purpose of these visits was to investigate the rollout of the COVID-19 relief fund, the 665 million presidential employment stimulus program allocated to the arts, culture, and heritage sector, as well as the walkabout to assess the state of our facilities in Swane, in Swane, the OD and HM Pitjie Stadium. The PSP fund were aimed at creating 8,000 as well as retaining 26,000 jobs in the cultural and creatives as well as the sports sector. This oversight vision enabled the committee to be aware of the true state of matters in the entities. And we must indicate that we commit to ensuring that we will keep a firm eye on the matters raised in the committee. Whilst there's been a progress on the other matters, we do note and do not take lightly the cries, concern, allegations, and issues raised by the various stakeholders on our visit. We're extremely concerned about the challenges of leadership that are mostly related to senior managers that were on suspension for misconduct. We are worried about the high rate of legal disputes between the management and the entities and their junior staff members. It is alleged that there was a perpetual recycling of council members who have a history of poor performance in other councils and some members serving on multiple councils within the same sector. The ANC support the recommendations that the council should take the necessary steps to fill all the vacant managerial posts to reduce the number of active staff vacancies. The council review the expenditure on internal legal battles between junior staff and management. The Department of Arts, Sports and Culture should review the policy on council members serving on multiple councils within the same sector. It should also review concerns that council members are recycling, especially those that have performing poorly in other councils. Performance management of council members should be prioritized thereafter. And our members who are already seeing the fruits of the oversight visits that we conducted in the recent follow-up consultation we had with the entities. The former acting CEO of PAFCOPS, who was implicated in the Mazak forensic report, was asked to step down from his position on the 16th of April, 2021. And an interim CEO was appointed on the 19th of April. The PAFCOPS Council has launched an investigation into allegation of sexual harassment of staff members, and it's also started reviewing the qualifications of those occupying managerial position on the entity. Department is working in providing sustainable programs to remunerate its artists following the challenging experience in the National Arts Council. The committee conducted a follow-up meeting which indicated that community engagement of turning the old stadium and HM Pitjie into multi-purpose sports centers were ongoing discussion. But we're happy, Honorable Chairperson, when the MEC of Sports in Gauteng indicated and outlined in this follow-up meeting the timeline on how they are going to demolish HM Pitjie Stadium and build the multi-purpose center for the community. We remain resolute to ensure that the creative and cultural industry strives and contribute to the holistic development of our people. We will continue to monitor the implementation of the recommendation as part of building capability of the entities. Honorable Chairperson, siyezwa nje ukuthi kuthiwa khona imali edliwe, afikaze ke sikuthole thina lokho. I-department isebenza kanzima and we have numerous meetings with the department explaining the expenditure and the intervention made in terms of the creative arts that were not paid. Those that were not paid, they indicated how they are going to be paid and the challenges experienced thereafter. I might have, we know, Chairperson, that the creative arts had a sit-in that took a number of months. But the problem, the challenges were resolved, and we were happy with the report the department outlined in the portfolio committee. Asiyazi leyo kudliwa kwemali. Asazi ukuthi ungqongqoshe makuthiwa kudliwa imali uyidle kuphi eyidla nobani, because ama reports ama department nama entities asikhombisa kahle ukuthi yikuphi la kade kunenkinga khona ukuthi idliwe nokuthi isetshenziswe kanjani. ANC supports this report, Chairperson, and we thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Silahlela amacici ezimask. Enkosi sihlalo wendlu sihlalo ndiphakamisa into yoba mawamkelwe lengcelo esuka kwisebe lezobugcisa kunye nenkcubeko. Inkosi.
Thokoze. The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
Chair, noted the objections of the EFF.
Noted. No any other party. The report is duly agreed to. We proceed to the third order. Secretary.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry on Department of Trade, Industry and Competition's second and third quarter financial and non-financial performance for 2020-21 financial year.
I will call on the Honorable Nkosi to introduce the report.
Thank you, House Chair, honorable members, fellow South Africans. I present to this House the report of the Portfolio Committee, Trade and Industry on the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, second and third quarter financial and non-financial performance for 2020 and 2021 financial year. This report culmination is in the engagement of the committee and the department. Budgetary oversight through quarterly performance. It's important for the committee to follow up and progress of the department in respect of its annual performance plan, particularly assess the performance against its set targets. In that engagement with the department, the committee focused on specific issues like tackling the economic challenges of the purpose of the growing of the economy and the implementation of the targeted intervention captured in the economic recovery and reconstruction plan, as well as the sectoral master plans, are expected to mitigate the effects of South Africa's underlying structural constraints. The other point is the impact assessment of the COVID-19 regulations, which led to the lockdown of the economy in a number of sectors in South African economy. Further, South African trade policy as means of promoting and accelerating the sustainable economic growth, decent job in order to reduce poverty and extreme inequality that characterizes South African society and economy. Further, specific area of performance for the department, including designation of special economic zone, localization in support of local manufacturing of personal protection equipment for the fight against COVID-19, designation of products for local procurement, and incentives to support the investment of the economy. The committee welcome and applaud the work of the department in respect to the study undertaken by the DTIC in the impact of the COVID-19 on employment. Department's efforts to ensure continued trade relations between South Africa and the United Kingdom following its exit from the European Union. The collaboration between the government, labor, and business to the establishment of the Personal Protective Equipment Local Manufacturing Partnership. This partnership ensured that local manufacturers are able to respond to the demands by building manufacturing and export capacity of personal protective equipment, the collaboration between the DTIC and the local municipality for facilitating the designation of the special economic zone. The committee encourages the DTIC to continue to work with all stakeholders across government to facilitate the designation of the functioning of the SEZs. I table this report of the Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry to this House. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Member. I will now recognize the political parties wishing to make a declaration. The DA.
Very nice of you, Honorable April, that you decided to trade in the leprechaun suit for your mother's curtains. Honorable House Chairperson, there is not a week that goes by in which the commentariat and the financial press do not criticize Minister Patel's handling of the economy. In the Business Day 2 weeks ago, Oliver Dixon stated the following.
Chairperson.
Minister Ibrahim Patel is the weakest link.
Can you take a seat? There's a point of order. I'd just like to ask if the honorable member is willing to take a question. Are you ready to take a question, honorable member?
Unfortunately not, House Chairperson. Honorable House Chairperson, as per Oliver Dixon, Minister Ibrahim Patel is the weakest link in President Cyril Ramaphosa's reconfigured economic cluster and should have been axed along with all the others. He goes on to theorize as to why the minister has remained in cabinet. As politicians go, Patel is an affable guy, even if the bar for likability is rather low in SA. And that is the most compelling reason Patel has been able to remain below the radar of the political commentariat. To pass muster, you merely need not be corrupt and be able to string together comforting but vacuous platitudes to be considered competent enough for us. I tend to agree with Mr. Dixon's statements, but let me expand
Honorable member. You know, take a seat. The point of order.
The member in violation of the rule has called the minister with his first name, and he knows very well that is not allowed in the rules.
Okay. Point of order sustained.
It was a quote, I might just add. I tend to agree with Mr. Dixon's statements, but let me expand on them to illustrate how bad the last 8 months have been. As if banning e-commerce, rotisserie chickens, and open-toed shoes last year wasn't bad enough. The minister has outdone himself this year in proving his ineptitude and unsuitability for his current post. According to Bloomberg's unemployment monitor, South Africa now holds the unenviable title as the world leader in unemployment at 34.4% as per the standard definition and 44.4% as per the expanded definition. Youth unemployment is up to the incomprehensible figure of 74.8%. The World Bank's latest Ease of Doing Business report puts South Africa at positions 139 and 145 for the starting a business and trading across borders metrics, respectively. According to the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, business confidence is at its lowest point since October 2020. Our poor performance on these metrics should come as no surprise to South Africans when they see what the minister has been up to over the past year. Firstly, we saw the Competition Commission block the sale of Grand Parade Investments' Burger King franchise to a USA-based private equity firm on the grounds of public interest, despite the obvious economic benefits of such a transaction. But I assume Honorable April wouldn't know what those are. Thankfully, as a result of pressure from the DA and civil society, the Commission has done a U-turn and has allowed the transaction to proceed, albeit with several compromises on the structure of the deal. Then one just needs to cast their minds back to the awkward, forced, and quite frankly, comical selfies posted by Minister Patel on the DTRC's official Twitter account, showing him standing outside damaged and looted businesses in KwaZulu-Natal. Despite several invitations from the DA, it took him several weeks to go and survey the damage for himself, while our public representatives were on the ground from day one. In a briefing to the Portfolio Committee roughly a week ago, he said that we must reduce the opportunity for those seeking to undermine the democratic order to find fertile conditions in our communities. The question then is, what did he say to his comrades in the ANC who were responsible for the loss of 50 billion rand in GDP and put hundreds of thousands of jobs at risk as a result of their own internal factional battles? Lastly, in an unprecedented move, his department's lead negotiator on the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, Dr. Morgan Pillay, warned of the dire economic consequences that would befall South Africa if Minister Patel continued with his drive to localize 20% of imports under the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan. This would risk South African businesses access to the $3.4 trillion market available under the AFCFTA, all for 200 billion rand in short-term gains. The fact is that under Minister Patel, the ministry has restricted trade, diminished competition, and collapsed industry. There is no doubt that the president missed out on a prime opportunity to give him the boot and allow him to enjoy his early retirement, reading Marx and fantasizing over the realization of the national democratic revolution. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. EFF.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, it must be noted that yes, South Africa's economy has been greatly disturbed by COVID-19 pandemic. It must also be noted that yes, the recent unrest has had an enormous impact on the economic decline of some of the industries in this country. However, we should as a country be cognizant of the fact that the Minister of Trade and Industry has mostly fed us rhetoric speeches throughout his tenure as the head of the engine of the economy in this country. What policies has the Department of Trade and Industry implemented since he has been head that have been game changers in stimulating the economy of this country? In the sugar industry, what strides has this department taken in making sure that there is some leeway in changing ownership to ensure that we have at least one Black-owned milling company? In the gaming industry, how much of that is woman-owned, or is it still in the hands of the white monopoly? Where are we as a country in having a state-owned company that at least produces PPE that we as South Africans are using each and every day? Is the ministry happy with the levels of unemployment that continue to decline each and every day? We as a country understand that the global decline that occurred due to lack of trade and market closing. However, prior to that, how much was South Africa allowing to happen in its market? As it is, we still have illegal dumping of goods. We have a thriving illegal gambling business. We have no way of making sure that we stimulate exports rather than allowing imports to be the norm. How much beneficiation is happening in this country? What basic necessities are we now importing instead of making our own? It must be said that this report is highly pathetic, and as the economic freedom fighters, we reject it. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. IFP.
Honorable Chairperson, thank you, honorable members. The Department of Trade and Industry and Competition is strategically placed to steer the country's economy towards increased growth and competitiveness of our exports. We acknowledge the role this department plays in boosting the country's development and competitiveness in trade. Whilst the department has provided a positive outlook for the economy for the rest of 2021, our concern lies with households and individuals who have been affected by the pandemic, with the recent riots pushing people further into poverty. Whilst economic activity has picked up as a result of the relaxing of lockdown restrictions, our worry is that some South Africans may be left behind and many businesses might never reopen. The IFP has expressed its concern over the need for increased collaboration between the Department and local industries. The current economic environment further alienates small businesses, and there is need for more intervention to be made for more inclusive growth to occur, in the country. The department in its report states that one of its strategic goals include broadening participation in the economy. And sadly, our economy remains largely non-inclusive as small businesses are often sidelined. South Africa needs to move towards increased trade in manufactured goods to benefit from its trade with countries in the South. At the same time, we do acknowledge that China, the world's biggest manufacturer, is a big competitor, and a reduction of import tariffs will harm South Africa's manufacturing industry. We applaud the department's achievement of 87% and 89% of its target in the second and third quarter, respectively. Whilst this marks a clean improvement from the 60% achievement in the first quarter, it is our hope that the department achievements achieves all its targets in the coming quarter. The IFP supports the deliberation and recommendations made by the parliamentary committee. I thank you, Chair.
FF plus.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. The second and third quarter performance of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition reflected a period of sustained pressure on the economy. Although employment data released at the time indicated a significant uptake in employment as a result of the relaxing COVID-19 regulations, as well as economic measures introduced compared to the previous months of more strict and irrational lockdown measures, it should be considered that the economic growth was from a fairly low level because of state capture, poor governance and corruption. Voorsitter, alhoewel die departement se behaling belyn is met sy strategiese doelwitte, was die doelwitte eweneens onvoldoende en te laag as gevolg van die stremming wat 'n verswakte ekonomie en beperkte begroting op die departement geplaas het. Hierdie behaling word ironies selfs verder onder druk geplaas deur die gevolge van die onlangse politieke onstabiliteit, diefstal, brandstigting en onluste, veral in KwaZulu-Natal met spesifieke vermelding na die spesiale ekonomiese sone in Richards Bay. Voorsitter, die blote feit dat die mededingingstribunaal ekonomiese ontwikkeling en administrasieprogramme onderspandeer het en die finansiële program met 12,4% oorspandeer het, is 'n groot bron tot kommer. Voorsitter, die departement vir handel en nywerheid en mededinging is 'n onderskatte departement wat 'n bepalende rol moet speel in ekonomiese groei, ontwikkeling en herstel deur werkskepping. Hierdie departement slaag nie in hierdie doelwit nie. Dankie, voorsitter.
Thank you, Honorable Member. ACDP.
Honorable Speaker, House Chair, as we consider this report, the ACDP asserts that the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition is certainly one of the key departments necessary to revive our ailing economy. In the midst of limited to no growth in key sectors and the economy continuing to shed jobs at an alarming rate, this department and others in the economic cluster must step up to the plate. The ACDP further notes that one of the strategic goals of the department is to provide predictable, competitive, equitable, and socially responsible environment conducive to investment, trade, and enterprise development. It is our contention that the ruling party is sabotaging this very important strategic goal of the department. Our economic environment is anything but predictable as we continue to score own goals with policy and political uncertainty. It is the ruling party's failed policies that make us less predictable, uncompetitive, unequal, and not socially responsible. The ACDP notes the department's budget of some 9.31 billion for the year under review, which includes an improved performance of 87% achievement of targets in the second quarter, and 11.3 billion leverage investments against a target of 1.7 billion on various projects covered in the report. Honorable Chair, while this report indicates that there is optimism regarding the economic growth outlook for South Africa in 2021, the continuous shedding of jobs tells another story, with the official unemployment rate now at 34.4% or some 7.8 million jobless on the narrow definition of unemployment. The ruling party is failing our mainly young and Black African population. It must be said that while the Economic Reconstruction Recovery Plan and our sectoral master plans are good in themselves, they are failing to produce the results necessary to turn our economy around. The ACDP continues to champion the cause of beneficiation and localization. We find it ironical and shameful that while the World Bank ranks South Africa as the world's richest country in terms of its mineral reserves worth an estimated $2.5 trillion, we rank as the most unequal nation with one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. It is time to stop the indiscriminate exporting of our raw materials and to deliberately and exponentially focus on beneficiation and localization if this department seeks to be a catalyst in turning our dismal employment, poverty, and inequality trajectory around. Thank you, Speaker. Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. UDM. ATM. Good. NFP. AIC. Hope.
We agree, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Member. That was very progressive. Al Jamal.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. We appreciate the efforts made by the Minister. However, we would like to request that the Minister liaise with the small business development portfolio so that small businesses can also play a role in making especially contact and get opportunities from other countries as well. The Minister seems to favor only a few countries, and many ambassadors have approached Al-Jamaa for appointments with the Minister or appointments with people in the portfolio committee because the Minister and the leadership is not very approachable. And I feel that we should increase our footprint.
Honorable Hanif.
Yes,
Can you
Honorable
hold?
Chair.
Yes, just hold it a little.
No,
Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. I want to appreciate the hairstyle and how Honorable Member is glowing.
No comment from me.
Honorable House Chair, Honorable House Chair, you must please protect me. At another meeting, the Chief Whip had a problem with my sunglasses. But to carry on, Honorable Chair, like I said, that we need the Minister to be more cooperative with the Small Business Development Department and the Portfolio Committee, and to extend the footprint in which footprint of the countries we do business with. The image of the Minister and his department is that they're not very friendly when it comes to other countries wanting to do business. And the Minister, when throws the protocols and says you've got to work via the DIRCO, and you know that for the past year there has been a lot of problems in DIRCO. In fact, we expected that they will throw chairs at one another recently. So I think that the minister needs to, to be open to doing business with other countries and with the idea that small businesses can benefit. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The other day, there was a point of order made here requesting the Honorable Hanif to appear on the screen, to make sure that he appears on the screen. And today, it's another appreciation. I think I would like to meet Honorable Hanif privately to discuss some of these things. ANC.
Thank you very much, Chair. Honorable members, comrades and friends, fellow South Africans. The African National Congress support the report of trade and industry competition, the second and third quarter financial and non-financial performance. The committee has engaged with the DTIC in its performance of these 2 quarters of 2020-2021 financial year, and applauds the department on its performance despite current economic challenges and the impact caused by the COVID-19. The department's performance improved from second quarter and where it's achieved 87%. Its target third quarter were achieved 89% target were achieved. Some of the performance highlighted in the committee discussed is that the department were designated the special economic zone as well as the investment attracted into this SEZ. The committee was encouraged by learning that the Tshwane Automotive Special Economic Zone had begun with full construction with 12 investors which had invested 2.8 billion. Where is Cuthbert? The Saldanha Richard Bay SZ has attracted 7 new investors that invested 347 million, which create 153 jobs. Furthermore, the department has designated the Nkomazi LCZ in 2019 to support significant economic and development within the Nkomazi and the Mpumalanga. The committee has also encouraged to learn that there was a progress in securing the national support for the project management unit in Nkomazi SEZ and the development and implementation of the SEZ strategy. The department has appointed 3 senior officials to be part of the board of the SEZ to ensure that the SEZ will be well supported. The company was established and all systems were in place in all approval processes were accelerated. In this regard, the committee welcomed the collaboration between the DTIC and the local municipalities to facilitate the designation of the SEZ and encourage the DTIC to continue to work with all stakeholders across government to facilitate the designation and further of SEZ. In its assessment, the department, the committee learned that the investment of 1.1 billion was still supported with notwithstanding the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, which resulted in fewer applications. While in its third quarter, the department exceeded investment target, 11.3 billion was a leverage investment against the target of 1.7 billion on project in automotive incentive scheme, critical infrastructure program, business process service incentive program. I hope you're listening, Honorable Cuthbert. 31.8 billion was facilitated in pipeline investment against a target of 25 billion. This investment will support the returning. Okay, Chair.
Honorable members, let us not disturb the speaker on the podium. Please go ahead.
Yeah. The investment will support the retaining and the existing job of the creation of a new job that needs to be more ever than current economic challenges. Localization, the committee welcome intervention of the department to support localization through local production of protective equipment, in particular the scoping exercise to evaluate local capacity to respond to demand of PPE undertaken by the department at the beginning of the pandemic. The verification of 50 companies, 70% level 3 and higher Black economic empowerment level to supply the PPE. Measure to support the local PE manufacturers to access to the access of export market in Africa. These localization measures support the country's goal of industrialization and creating job opportunities. Mr. Cuthbert, you must listen now. The broad-based economic empowerment is defined in an act as an economic empowerment policy of Black people, including women, workers, youth, people with disability, people living in rural areas, through a diverse but integrated socio-economic strategy in changing the apartheid patterns of ownership of our economy. We dedicate this report to our late colleague, Comrade Tozama Mantashe. May her soul rest in perfect peace. The DA is propagating the right-wing neo-economic liberal policies that seeks to reverse the gain of our democratic dispensation. The EFF does not have any plan in terms of the transformative agenda. They just have chaotic, mediocre, and have just that's basic on the scientific evidence. The FF must just keep the Orania, the FF.
You must read.
SACDP. ACDP. The ANC is a governing party. It's not the ruling party.
Who is this person?
We govern with all the structures and all the organization here. That means we govern in unison. It's not just we are ruling. It's not a ruling party. The ANC, it's a governing party. I thank
Semantics,
you,
Chair.
Thank you, Honorable. Honorable Member.
House Chair.
That's why I'm rising, Honorable Member.
Can the House Chair please tell those two irresponsible people to put on their mask? We are here and there's rules, please. Those two big voices there, it's irresponsible.
Okay, Honorable Member, thanks for your advice. If it is true. I now recognize the Honorable Chief Whip of the Majority Party from the chamber. Honorable members. Honorable members, let's slow down, please. Honorable Chief Whip.
Is he talking?
Honorable member, take your comfortable seat, please.
Ha ke leboe modulasetulo ke sisinya hore ntlo ena e amoele taelo ena e beilweng ka mona ka tsatsi lena hona je.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. The motion is that the report be adopted.
Please note the objection of the EFF.
Noted. Any other-
Chairperson, please note the objection of the FF plus.
Noted. Any further objection? Thank you very much. The report is agreed to. The Secretary will read the last order of the day.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Public Works on a petition calling on developing a consistent system across municipalities, provincial governments, and national government on how the Extended Public Works Program, EPWP, employs job seekers, submitted by Mr. S. August, MP.
Thank you. I will now call upon the Honorable N. Tobongwana to introduce the report.
Honorable House Chair, members of the Portfolio Committee of Public Works and Infrastructure, honorable members, fellow South Africans. Molweni ngolu suku lokuqala entwasahlobo nakwinyanga yethu yamagugu, inyanga ebaluleke kakhulu kwimbali yelizwe lethu ngoba kuyo kwazalwa iqhawekazi lethu, umama uNomzamo Zanyiwe Winnie Madikizela Mandela. May she continue to rest in power. I'm standing here on behalf of the Portfolio Committee of Public Works and Infrastructure to present a report based on the petition presented to the National Assembly by Honorable August. The committee dealt with the petition in its meeting on the virtual platform on the 16th March 2021. The matter raised in the petition was for the National Assembly to investigate a policy review that will look into development a consistent system across municipalities, provincial governments, and national government on how the EPWP employs job seekers. When we engaged the department on the 16th March, they reported to us as the Portfolio Committee that there is already a policy in place that is standardized for the employment of EPWP beneficiaries across national, provincial, and local spheres. The committee stated it was clear that the department already developed uniform standard setting policy. The challenge was therefore how this policy was implemented across the 3 levels of government. We cannot investigate, therefore, and drive towards a policy review simply because there are challenges with implementation. What the committee will do is to assist the department to get that policy refined so that it can be properly implemented. The committee raised critical questions of whether and how the DPWI and its EPWP branch was enabled through resources, that is, through a budget and dedicated staff, to enforce implementation of this national standardized uniform manner of how municipalities, provinces, and national government should employ EPWP beneficiaries. The discussions with the EPWP branch on the DPWI highlighted that they did not have properly defined mandate in place. There is not a public works and infrastructure law in South Africa, which is a challenge. Without such a law, this department does not have the enforcement power to ensure that the national, provincial, and municipal government implement the national policy on how EPWP beneficiaries are selected, employed, trained, and assisted to enter the formal job market. We don't want them to only remain as EPWP beneficiaries. We would like them to enter the formal job market after they exit the EPWP. The committee stated that the DPWI has to urgently complete its mandate-setting draft public works bill to fully empower its branches to do its work. Remember that during the 5th Parliament, the previous Committee on Public Works also asked the department to get this done, that is the Public Works Bill. It cannot be that we move from one administration to the next and we are not implementing the resolutions of the previous committee. This matter must be strengthened and decisively dealt with. That's what the committee told the department. Further, the department has to ensure that it includes in the clauses in the bill that makes it possible to enforce implementation of standard setting uniform policies, such as how beneficiaries are employed in the EPWP project in all spheres of government. The EPWP plays a key role in the economic reconstruction and development plan that seeks to rebuild the country's economy. It is also the safety net for the majority of our people, especially the vulnerable, who are mostly women and youth. The indigent have no skills and qualifications, and they are the most suffering during this time of pandemic. Therefore, a standardized policy on how we employ EPWP beneficiaries at all levels of government is crucial. This is the report of the Portfolio Committee on Public Works and Infrastructure on the petition presented by Honorable S. August in the committee.
Siyabonga Mhlonishwa.
Thank you, House Chair.
I now recognize political parties wishing to make declarations. DA.
Thank you, House Chair. As the committee chairperson said, the petition was received from Honourable Sean August, asking for the Assembly to investigate the policy review. The petition was dealt with by the committee on the 16th of March. However, this is not the first time issues around the EPWP have been raised in this committee, nor will it be the last, until there is a concerted effort to rid this program of patronage, cadre deployment, and a lack of transparency. During the meeting, the DPWI reported that there is a policy in place that standardized the employment of EPWP beneficiaries across all levels of government, and that the stated policy should be equally implemented. However, the committee raised the critical issue of whether and how the DPWI and its EPWP branch was enabled to enforce the implementation of this national standardized policy. And therein lies the rub: the enforcement of the policy and its transparent application. Sadly, no matter how hard the very able EPWP branch tries, it struggles to implement its policy, prevent the policy being misused to get jobs for pals, and win votes. The department does not have the necessary legislation in place that gives muscle to ensure that a consistent system of employing job seekers is implemented. It urgently needs to get its mandate strengthened through a public works bill that will enable the EPWP branch to ensure that such uniform standards are implemented. Minister De Lille, you have failed to complete your mandate of finalizing the public works bill to fully empower all branches of the DPWI to do their work. In 2019, I stated in this House that the EPWP had its focus on the progression of beneficiaries from unemployed to the formal employment sector through public employment programs. In 2019, it struggled to make any real progress. In August 2021, it is still struggling. In fact, it has so underperformed and so dramatically that one can quite confidently say it has failed, a failure exponentially exacerbated by COVID-19. South Africa is drowning in youth looking towards the EPWP as a career path, not as a stepping stone to inclusion in a formal work environment. Untrained and unskilled workers are not appropriate material for long-term job creation and sustainability. We regularly hear of national grants not being paid out to NGOs or returned to national government, simply because paperwork has not been properly completed. SMMEs are not being uplifted and training is not being effected. And it is the beneficiaries who suffer. The pool of trained youth, women, and people with disabilities in the construction industry has not grown. And this is because no meaningful upskilling and no accurate monitoring is taking place. One of the core reasons remains the patriarchal nature of the EPWP Jobs for Pals revolving door that ensures that only a certain pool of people are considered for appointments. So prevalent is this phenomenon that the Democratic Alliance has officially tabled an end to cadre deployment bill with the Speaker's office in Parliament. While this is not specifically aimed at the EPWP, it does stipulate that the bill will make it a criminal offence to appoint someone on the basis of political loyalty rather than on a demonstrated merit. This will have far-reaching effects, and it will no longer be possible for any official to be forced to bypass policies such as the national policy on EPWP to offer employment only to the connected few. One has to consider if the petition brought by Honourable August had not stopped short of highlighting cadre deployment by name, whether a full-scale investigation into the failures of the EPWP would not have been called for. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. EFF.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, the petition lodged by Honourable August of the Good Party sought to standardize the manner in which EPWP is implemented across the country. From our experience, we know for a fact that EPWP jobs are dished out to the ruling party ground activists across the country. The program is a means of dispensing patronage to the exclusion of many poor and deserving households. The EPWP was meant to alleviate poverty amongst those whom live beyond the poverty line, and in the same breath to address the unemployment faced by youth. Its purpose was to give skills to the youth for future permanent employment, but the program is doing none of this. Instead, we have come to see corruption, nepotism, and favoritism being the order of the day. Despite the DPWI stating that they do have a uniform standard setting policy, the mandate is not clear, nor enforcement power to ensure positive implementation of national policies. The deception of calling EPWP job opportunities instead of jobs masks the abuse of many of these workers face every single day. They work without protection in extremely dangerous conditions oftentimes. We have repeatedly argued that the EPWP jobs must be converted into full-time jobs, and these workers must be trained to maintain rural roads, to fix leaking taps, to remove alien plants, to rehabilitate polluted wetlands, and to be a permanent workforce of the state. This will eliminate the corruption that comes with tenders, because the state will have its own force to build schools and hospitals, to clean the linen and public healthcare centers, and to take medication to the indigent and homebound. The illusion by the capitalists that the EPWP is recognized as the best internationally has led the department to be in the dreamland that EPWP is effective, whereas it is failing dismally to address the number of youth and adults that still find themselves unemployed or recognized as beneficiaries and are sometimes stuck in cleaning graves and streets. India has a similar program known as Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which aims at providing 100 days of wage employment for every household with no source of income. DPWI needs to relook into its policies and aim for permanent employment for those who live under the poverty line. The department needs to draft an act that will ensure and guarantee employment, and also look into insourcing of all EPWP beneficiaries who are at present in database. EFF vehemently rejects this report.
Thank you, Honourable Member. IFP. IFP.
Honourable Chairperson. Chairperson, it seems my member is having some difficulties.
Okay, Honourable Singh.
May I proceed?
Proceed, Honourable Singh.
Yeah. Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. This petition that has been submitted by Honourable August transcends party politics. The issue of addressing unemployment and requires nationally coordinated efforts. More alarming is that the burden of unemployment is concentrated amongst the youth, who account for 59, almost 60% of the total number of unemployed persons. The IFP welcomes the petition to consider a policy review due to the urgency needed in securing the lives of South Africans in the Western Cape and nationwide. Our policy promotes the need to stimulate employment growth while minimizing interference by the government in business-labor relations. Therefore, the coordination of systems across municipalities, provincial and national governments will enable decentralization over time. By doing so, local government systems are further capacitated to act with efficiency. Within the same perspective, Honorable Chairperson, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure's argument that it did not have the necessary enforcement mandate to ensure uniform implementation across the 3 levels of government shows coordination deficiencies, which impact service delivery. Further, while DPWI reported that there was, in fact, a standardized policy in place on how beneficiaries of the EPWP were employed at different levels, there is a need to ensure that such policies are actually implemented. In addition to the recommendations provided by the Portfolio Committee, the IFP recommends that the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure assigns a monitoring mechanism to the EPWP in addition to the government-wide monitoring and evaluation system. This mechanism, we believe, will enable the assessment of a uniform policy implementation within the midterm and short term, so that interventions can be considered in cases of outcome and output shortcomings. Overall, the IFP supports the Portfolio Committee's recommendations for the Public Works Bill to be completed to ensure coordination across branches and consistent policy implementation. We also acknowledge the importance of the EPWP as a resolution towards addressing unemployment, upskilling and reskilling, and creating a safety net for unskilled South Africans. It is in the same light that we recommend DPWI's monitoring of this program in order to have foresight on associated challenges. And we want to agree with the last speaker that the this program has to be translated into one which will provide more permanent employment and job security for thousands of people out there. It is something that we require, and we cannot pay people a minimal wage just to allow them and say, well, they are employed and add to the statistic figures of those employed. So government needs to seriously relook into this program to ensure more certainty in the job market and for those unemployed. Thank you very much, Honorable.
Thank you, Honorable Member. FF Plus.
Geachte huisvoorsitter, die aanbevelings vanaf die komitee soos vervat op bladsy 2 van die verslag onder punt 3 lees as volg. Ensures that as the EPWP is part of a safety net for a majority who have no skills and qualifications, a standardized policy on how government employs EPWP beneficiaries must be put in place. Die VF Plus het op 25 Mei vanjaar gedurende die begrotingspostdebat in hierdie einste huis daarop gewys dat die VF Plus nog nooit in enige provinsie werklik kon sien waar enige EPWP werker besig was met die uitvoering van sy of haar pligte en take nie en wat 'n verskil hulle werklik maak nie. Die VF Plus het ook genoem dat dit onseker is waar die 837,000 werksgeleenthede oor al 3 vlakke van die regering geskep was deur hierdie program in die tydperk April tot Desember 2019, as dit as 'n voorbeeld gebruik kan word. Chairperson, how can government create a safety net for people with no skills and no qualifications? Government cannot create jobs, and although they are trying to do that, with a massive effort to try and employ everybody by the state departments and through provincial and local governments, they are failing on it, and it creates a new problem, namely service delivery. Most of the national, provincial and local governments' budgets goes to massive salaries every month. Only a few benefits from this strategy, but the poor and those who are not schooled or trained do not benefit from this at all. Alhoewel hierdie probleme in Suid-Afrika opgelos gaan word, is deurdat hierdie regering moet ophou om in te meng in die privaat sektor met allerhande nuttelose wetgewing soos regstellende aksie en swart ekonomiese bemagtiging, en die privaat sektor se hande moet heeltemal losgemaak word om hul toe te laat om industrie te vestig, beleggers na Suid-Afrika te lok, mense met die nodige vaardighede op te lei om sodat die werkloosheidssyfer van 44,4% te kan akkommodeer in die privaat sektor, maar dan moet die regering op om alles te wil beheer en te bestuur. I say it again, the state and the government cannot train people and they cannot create jobs. The EPWP program cannot be considered as a safety net for South Africa's unemployment problems. it will only worsen matters. Instead of taking a person and put him behind a broom or a bag to clean an area, rather train that person so that he or she will be able to manage a huge company or business one day on its own, and also to put its skills back in the community by training others and providing jobs for them. But government must leave that for those in the private sector who knows how to do exactly just that. Government can no longer afford to try and create a safety net for the majority who have no skills and qualifications through the EPWP programs. It is simply not working. The FF Plus cannot support this failure of this report. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. ACDP.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. The ACDP notes that the Expanded Public Works Program has its origins in the Growth and Development Summit of 2003, which presents as one of its themes a commitment to create more jobs, better jobs, and decent work for all. This noble and lofty ideal has sadly been undermined by the inability to hold provinces and municipalities in particular accountable in terms of how beneficiaries of the Expanded Public Works Program were employed. Hence, this report on the petition lodged by the Honorable August. The ACDP understands that having a standardized policy in place does not necessarily ensure that it will be carried out. As a result, what is a much needed tool for job creation becomes smeared with allegations of nepotism, jobs for pals, or jobs for those who are card-carrying members of the ruling party. This further makes a mockery of EPWP, subscribing to the outcome of decent unemployment through inclusive economic growth. In addition, Honorable House Chairperson, it has also resulted in EPWP impacting negatively on the audit outcomes of public works and infrastructure, where the program disperses the majority of its budget, but the targets set are not achieved due to a failure to hold some national, provincial, and municipal departments accountable. This has got to stop. The ACDP is consciously aware that the National Department of Public Works and Infrastructure is responsible for the monitoring and evaluation of the EPWP, and to that effect must ensure that it efficiently gathers information about the performance of EPWP programs and projects, monitors and reports on the implementation progress, and evaluates the impact of the program on the participants, households, and their communities. It is in this regard that the ACDP supports the recommendations in this report, with the understanding that if properly implemented, the EPWP can indeed serve as a safety net for those who do not have the requisite skills or qualifications to become gainfully employed. Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. UDM. ATM. Good.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I just would like to thank the Portfolio Committee for all agreeing, all political parties agreed for this policy change. And I'd like to thank the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, as well as the Minister that sat in on the day when I represented or presented to the Portfolio Committee for their support. And we hope that moving forward, we can have a standardized system through all municipalities for EPWP. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable August. NFP.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chairperson, the NFP is noting, Honorable Chair, we would be failing the nation if we did not mention that EPWP program is a vehicle used by political parties, the ANC, DA, and the IFP to employ their members within our communities. The Good Party has brought in a petition to the NA to investigate a policy review on how the EPW employs job seekers. Sorry. It is rather hypocritically, don't you think, Its leader, Minister Patricia de Lille, under her 9 years tenure of mayorship in Cape Town, under the DA, used exactly that very same criteria to employ people on EPWP programs. Now that she has her little political party, they want the NA to review the policy because it no longer serves them. But when she had a bigger platform through the DA, all she cared about was increasing the membership of the DA by giving people jobs under the EPWP program who merely only members of the DA. eThekwini municipality needs close to 200 million in extra funds to fund its EPWP. This came after intentions have been expressed that the municipality seeks to extend the period of the program by 12 months. We all know that only the ANC members who benefited from these jobs and the so-called ghost workers. There are allegations that this program was plagued by serious problems, including the ghost workers in eThekwini. It was also alleged that although this is a national government program, the municipality was paying more for the program than the national government. The municipality was given a target to create 83,893 work opportunities between 2019 and 2024. We have received reports that the program has only about 4,799 participants. House Chair, it is clearly apparent that the implementing agents, municipalities and government agencies are in the business of wasting the limited resources of this country. They are in business of caterer deployment, enhancing their political party memberships at the cost of our people through taxpayers' money. If Parliament's oversight function was effective, these are matters that we'll be debating about robustly in this House. But we will ever do is declare reports after reports. The NFP will not support these reports. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. AIC. Oh. Vala Babu Space. Cope. Al-Jamal. Al-Jamal. ANC.
Mtamwa Tulu, Shirosak, Portfolio Committee of Public Works, members of the National Assembly, South Africa and her people. The Portfolio Committee on Public Works and Infrastructure tabling the report on the petition lodged by Mr. S. August from the Good Party to the House for a debate and adoption. The petition was lodged by Mr. S. August of the Good Party on the 24th of November 2020, called on the National Assembly to investigate a policy review that will look into developing a consistent system across all spheres of government on how the extended public works employs job seekers. On the 11th of December 2020, the above-mentioned petition was referred to the Portfolio Committee of Public Works and Infrastructure for consideration and report. On the 16th of March 2021, the committee considered the petition. The report of the Portfolio Committee on Public Works and Infrastructure was completed on the 17th of May 2021. The Extended Public Works Program is a critical program of government for providing employment and income to families who will not ordinarily have an income. It is a work program which provides skills and jobs for the unemployed, marginalized masses of our people. Over the period of time, the program has diversified itself from merely creating temporary employment, but it has extended itself to ensuring skills in various fields, including artisanal skilling in plumbing, carpentry, and electrical. It is to ensure that entrepreneurial skills are imparted, which can lead to creation of small business in townships. The importance of this program during this climate of low economic growth, which is compounded by COVID-19 pandemic and the unrest in KwaZulu-Natal and parts of Gauteng, cannot be overemphasized. The EPWP program certainly needs to be developed and extended in a consistent manner throughout the country. The report makes two very important observations. Firstly, the department has a clear and uniform standard for setting policies on the EPWP program. The committee felt that the EPWP program is an important component of economic reconstruction and recovery plan, and it must be appropriately implemented to tackle the challenges of unemployment in the country. Secondly, the committee raised the concern about whether Public Works and its EPWP section was sufficiently empowered in terms of legislations and regulations to apply a national standard for all the 3 spheres of government. The report makes 3 important recommendations given the significance of EPWP program in tackling the triple challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. The completion of the Public Works Bill, which will mandate and empower the department and its branch to enable it to implement EPWP in a consistent manner in all 3 spheres of government. The bill should make it possible for the minister and the department to implement a uniform standard of policies for how beneficiaries of the EPWP program at all the 3 spheres of government. The minister must ensure that EPWP as a part of safety net for the historically disadvantaged majority who have no qualifications or skills must have a standard policy on how government employs or select these beneficiaries from municipalities, provincial government, as well as the national government. The Portfolio Committee on Public Works and Infrastructure has adopted the report and hope that the National Assembly adopts this report and its recommendations are implemented. Before let me address 2 important issues. Those that are in red and their girlfriends in blue lampoons themselves and come into this podium and sounds our people. Chair of the session, EPWP is a program to alleviate poverty. It's a program to assist those that cannot be employed, those that are employable in the sector of society should use this program to gain employment and make sure that they get salaries. Those that comes here and firstly reject the program, and when they end, they say these people must be employed permanently. They do not know what they're talking about. The ANC-led government has a program on sustainable jobs creation. The ANC-led government understand that there should be a buffer to make sure that those that are poor and unemployed and the working class get something on a daily basis. We cannot allow those that want to use sloganeering to lampoon our people. Long live to EPWP.
Where? How?
Long live, long live.
Yo.
Halfly EFF.
Honorable member, please don't do that. And I recognize the Honorable Chief Whip of the majority party. Order, honorable members.
Thank you very much, House Chair. House Chair, I move that this report be adopted by the House. Thank you.
The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
Please note the objection of the EFF.
Noted.
House Chairperson, please note the objection of the FF Plus.
Noted. No further objections.
Chair, please note the objection of NFP.
Noted. Any further objections? None. Therefore, the report is agreed to. Thank you very much. Honorable members, that concludes the business for the day, and the House is adjourned.
Long live the chair. Long live the Ntombela.
Bye, doggy.